Hello and welcome to episode 138 of MMO Weekly, presented as always by Chitty's Cheesesteaks. I'm your host, Sal Manzo, joined by Mathias Altman-Kurosaki. And Mathias, I just finished up a recap for Mesmerized after the game here, and it's just a stunning loss. The fact that Nolan McLean looked like he was cruising through 6 innings, all of a sudden a hiccup in the seventh, and before you know it, the Mets lose this game 7-1. And the rubber game of the series to boot against the Diamondbacks team that was really coming with a lot of injuries, wasn't playing good baseball. All of a sudden now, the team that doesn't have Juan Soto in the lineup for a couple of weeks, and a team in the A's coming here this weekend. This is a series that I don't think anybody expected the Mets will be losing at home, but here we are.
Yeah, I mean, really, my one concern with tonight's game, even as McLean was dominating, was they scored one run.
Sure.
It's just not going to cut it. The Diamondbacks, I know coming into this series had not been scoring, but that was that's a talented lineup. All right. I know today they didn't have Corbin Carroll in the lineup, but you got guys like Ketel Marte, and Geraldo Perdomo, Adrian Del Castillo. Like they're talented guys on their roster. And you can't hold them down. You can't expect to win scoring just one run. And it's this Mets offense that has been super inconsistent this year. They've yet to win a game in which they've scored fewer than 4 runs. And on the flip side, they've yet to lose a game in which they've scored more than 4. It's so hot and cold right now. They have to find some form of consistency. They did bypass a couple opportunities, in particular, the inning where Tyrone Taylor led off with a double and then they didn't end up scoring, had runners on the corners with one out. You got to come through there. So they're still struggling a bit, those runners in scoring position. They were better at that in San Francisco. That's why they won those last 3 games in San Francisco. They were able to come through on Monday. But yeah, it's really the offense that's been losing them games. Luke Weaver shouldn't have been in that situation, probably. I know everyone's doubting the decision to pull McLean. I'm honestly wondering, what if they just had Weaver start the inning instead of Pitt coming in with 2 men on already? It's hard to bring in a reliever when they're already men on base, especially when they're multiple men on base and one of them's in scoring position. It's just it was a tough road out of that inning, and I really am not going to completely fault him for that. I know he gave up a couple additional runs, but I think overall this loss is on the lineup. Last 2 games really just have not shown up.
Yeah, no, I mean, I completely agree. They haven't shown up. And like you said, this has been a team that we were told would turn the wheel, so to speak, right past the baton, be a team that would be able to hit with runners in scoring position, move runners over, do those sort of little things better than they have in the past. And to your point, the Mets were doing a lot more of that in San Francisco. That's what won them the series, like you said, in that 4-game set. But you just didn't see it here with the Diamondbacks. It just very, very cold. I mean, Luis Robert had a good series. He's been really good so far for the Mets, which is a nice bright spot. But overall, just this offense is not getting going. I mean, Vientos has been really good so far. That's a lone bright spot, right? But there's nothing lighting up yet. Bo Bichette hasn't really done anything yet. Marcus Semien had a good series in San Francisco, but really hasn't done anything didn't do anything against the Diamondbacks here. Just a lot of inconsistency. Francisco Lindor, we'll get to him. He's doing what he always does and starts slow. With no Juan Soto in the lineup here now, you're going to feel it even more.
Yeah, and they were able to score a bit without Soto in San Fran, and maybe this is just it's freezing cold in New York right now, and they're just not hitting cold weather. I know that might sound like a ridiculous excuse, but it's true. Hitting in the Northeast right now, not easy. They were teeing off in San Francisco where it was not 30 degrees at night, but yeah, they need to find some type of solution. Lindor, I had a feeling this was coming, some type of slow start, just coming off that hamate bone injury. I almost wonder if he should have just began the year on the IL. I don't know who would have played shortstop instead of him. That's the thing. He still looks like Lindor at shortstop. At the plate, he looks like he's not at full strength necessarily. He looks a little uncomfortable. He's still drawing walks, and if you wouldn't believe it, he's already scored 9 runs already. I don't know. I'm not a huge runs scored guy as a statistic, but 9 runs through your first 13 games is a solid clip. They need to figure out what to do with Carson Benj. He's struggling mightily. I mean, he was in 0 for 24 up until his last at bat yesterday. And, Brett Beatty, I'm not sure is quite the answer in right field. He sort of misjudged that fly ball that turned into the game tying double for Gabby Moreno. And then you have Jorge Polanco, who is, I think his at bats are starting to turn around. I think Bo Bichette's at bats are starting to turn around. Simeon's at bats are definitely turning around. But the issue with Polanco is he's got this tendonitis in his Achilles, and he hasn't been able to play the field in almost 2 weeks. At what point do you just put him on the IL? Get a guy up, I'm not saying that, you have to call up Ryan Clifford, but it's kind of tough when the guy you signed to play first base can't play first base right now. So, and look, the first base defense cost them part of today's game. I mean, Mark Vientos makes a better throw. Game remains tied. Who knows? Maybe the inning just ends after that. So
shades of Lucas Duda with that throw and that
throw was
plate.
Everyone ragged on Pete Alonso for his throwing problems. And don't get me wrong, Pete Alonso had plenty of issues throwing, but that throw home was awful. I'm not going to sugarcoat it here. A good throw gets gets Fernandez by a mile, I think. And that just, he basically, it was like he was playing cricket there. I mean, he straight up threw it into the ground.
Yeah, I talk about somebody like Alonso, and the person I'm thinking of now is, Brandon Nimmo's having a really good start to his year. Someone that would look good still in the Met, near the top of the Mets lineup. But it is what it is. Like you said with Polanco is an interesting point too. At what point do you just put him on the IL and let him get a couple of weeks? Essentially the same thing you're doing with Soto, right? You're playing it safe here that you don't, you have a long 162. So maybe they feel inclined to do that with Polanco. Like you said, his at bats are getting better. But clearly he's not at full strength. And if he can't play first every day already, I mean, like you said, talking about Vientos' defense, I don't know. It's not good problems to have early on in the year for the Mets, but obviously it's early enough in the year that you don't want to hinder him, through the summer and things like that. So if you kind of have to suck it up, then maybe you do so.
Yeah, no, so like you're saying, it's April. You can recover when it's, early in the season, first month of the year, you can recover if you struggle a little bit. You get to June, July, you're playing through those injuries, your team is really struggling. As we learned last year, it's really hard to recover from those mid-season slumps. And,
sure.
We've seen it. I mean, you look across baseball right now. I mean, 3 teams in that played in the American League Division Series last year. The Mariners, Tigers, and Blue Jays are all off to dreadful starts right now. In the National League, I mean, look, the Mets are 7-6. It feels like they should be better than 7-6 right now.
Sure.
The series in San Francisco was great. They really tore the cover off the ball those last 3 games. That Ronnie Mauricio walk-off was great on Monday. But like I was saying, when they're losing, it's not because of their pitching. I know today the final score looked ugly, and yesterday the final score looked ugly. Bottom line is they were facing an Arizona pitching staff that's pretty weak, and they couldn't get anything going against them. So above all, I think some of the guys, like I said earlier, some of the guys are starting to take better at bats. They really just need to put it all together. And when Juan Soto comes back, I mean, you should be adding him to a well-oiled machine, but right now they're not that.
No, not at all. And I mean, you're talking about that the pitching overall has been good. One thing I feel like we do have to talk about, though, is I just feel like David Peterson has not been that good. He's somebody that I think out of all the starters is probably the weakest link right now. I just wonder how much run he gets, right? I mean, I know the Mets probably wouldn't be thrilled with putting Manaea in his place. I think there's a reason why Manaea has stayed as kind of that little swing guy in the bullpen or whatever they can use him. But that's something that I think has to worry Met fans in the long haul. He really just has not looked the same since he was, post All-Star break last year. He has not been the same pitcher. And I know they said that they're going to continue going, staying with a 5-man rotation. and not going with the 6. They want to keep guys on regular rest, but I just do want to get your thoughts there on him so far, just kind of being the weakest of the starters so far.
Yeah, those last 2 outings are not going to cut it. 10 earned runs in 9 innings. He looked like he sort of settled down after the second inning yesterday, but I mean, by then you're down 5-0. It's kind of hard for your team to recover from that. Both the Giants and the Diamondbacks were super aggressive against him, and it felt like every time he would throw the first pitch and be right down the middle. Those guys, both teams really are just tattooing him. He definitely is the weakest link, and unfortunately for him, it's also a contract year. He's costing himself a lot of money right now, unfortunately, I don't think Sean Manaea is the answer here. He just does not look like himself yet. He's doing his job as the mop-up man, but beyond, I don't know if I would trust him beyond that. He's topping out at about 91, and his velocity's falling off quickly. I know he's getting paid $25 million a year currently to be a mop-up man, but I don't see him, cracking the rotation anytime soon. I'm looking at guys, Christian Scott, he was great today for Syracuse. Jonah Tong, I think if he keeps working on things, he could be there. I would even consider Tobias Myers maybe. But I think if Peterson keeps struggling with the amount of starting pitching depth they have, he's the first guy out of the rotation if he keeps struggling.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I think Christian Stott's a name to look out for. Obviously, with the Tommy John, we haven't heard about him in a while, but I know he looked really good in spring training. The stuff is still there. The velocity is there post Tommy John. He's somebody that, I think if you're going to give a crack to, I think I'd really like to see him, make however, many starts. But I think he would be the guy you call next man up here. I know Jonathan, I think his first couple of starts to AAA got banged around pretty good, if I'm not mistaken.
His second start, he got knocked around, yeah.
Okay. And obviously he's someone that if you're the Mets, you want to make it as successful as possible, right? You don't want to do what you did to him last year. That coming up during the stretch run probably wasn't ready to do so. So hopefully we could see Christian Scott sooner than later just pitch him well for the Mets. And you brought up Carson Bench, talking about, guys in AAA. It's been a struggle of it. We talked before the year how, as far as the Mets were concerned, if this did happen, if he got off to kind of a mighty struggle, it was early enough in the year that you could still send him down for a few weeks to get things right. But I think, as you kind of alluded to, I think we're kind of getting to that point where maybe he needs some time down in Syracuse to get himself, back on track. And then the next time he's up here, it'll be for the long haul.
Yeah, and really the injury that's coming back to bite them right now is Mike Tauchman. He was
big time.
Probably, I honestly wonder if Tauchman didn't get hurt, if Benj would have made the roster to begin with.
Sure.
And look, I think there have been some things that I like from Benj. He's walking a decent clip. He's not afraid to steal bases. He's already stolen 4 bases, all on 4 tries, by the way. But he's working counts, getting those deep counts. But then he's chasing. It feels like he'll work that 3-2 count, then chase a slider in the dirt or swing through a fastball. He's really struggling to catch up to fastballs. So he's 4 for 37. It wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to send him to the minors. I think the Soto injury sort of exacerbates things. But they do have options. You could call up a guy like MJ Melendez and have him fill in. I don't know how comfortable Ronnie Mauricio would be playing the outfield, but I mean, you could give him a few starts out there, but they do. I don't want his confidence to go completely by the wayside. And I know that getting sent down to the minors, might hurt a little bit, but if he gets regular reps and starts to hit again down there, then I think that he can come back with more confidence and will be more ready to face major league pitching.
Yeah, no, it's a hard thing, right? Because on the one hand, he really is struggling. You see it. He's walking, like you said. Defensively, you see signs. I like that he could play center field too. I still don't know maybe how comfortable he is out there as well. Couple balls, I feel like getting over his head. Maybe that shouldn't. But this is a guy that the Mets, for the most part, they cleared space for him, right? I mentioned Brandon Nimmo before. outside of having 5 years in Nimmo, they wanted to clear an outfield spot for Carson Bench. So you want this to work out. You want this to be successful. So if that means that he needs to go down to Syracuse for a few weeks, get himself comfortable, get himself right, I don't think that's the worst move, because you want the next time, if you do that, for him to come up, you don't want him going back down again, right? You want him running with it. I think it's a good point that you made about Tachman, that if he didn't get injured, it's probably a good chance that Bench isn't making the roster on opening day. But it's just growing pains for a team that's you still don't know what to make of it, right? It's a completely new face, and you don't know if they have time to figure it out. It's this weird win now window. Bo Bichette's essentially on a 1-year deal. You have all these new faces. You have some young talent that you hope works out. I don't know. It's very interesting. I don't know if the Mets have any idea what their identity is yet. And, for their own sake, hopefully they can figure it out sooner than later, and they can maybe win kind of those closer, like you were mentioning before, those closer ball games and things like that. It's just, I know I keep saying the word interesting, but that's all I keep thinking of, with just this nucleus that they put together in an off season, or tried new nucleus.
Yeah, I'll say easily the acquisition I've been most impressed with has been Luis Robert Jr. I mean, he looks like a brand new man at the plate.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not chasing nearly as often. He's drawing walks, which has not really been his thing. I saw it's the first time in his career he had a 10-game span where he drew 10 walks.
Wow.
He's providing defense. I know he had a couple of misplays where he overran a ball, but in general, his defense has been strong out in center field. Big issue for them last year. They did not have a center fielder who could hit. And this might be the answer. And look, he's not going to hit 330 all year long, but as long as he's like a 270 to 280 hitter with that plate discipline and is able to hit for power still, they're getting everything they could have asked for out of him. So, I mean, props to him. He's made the adjustments. And I mean, he's already batting in the meat of the order. With or without Soto, I think he would be there.
Sure.
So, yeah, super, super impressive early returns from him.
Yeah, I mean, the way things are going right now, do you think maybe you're leading him off with the way Lindor?
I was just thinking about that earlier today.
And again, I understand we love leadoff Lindor and all that, but I don't know if he's playing with a full deck in terms of health right now with the hand. And he always starts out slow anyway. At some point, if a guy's not hitting, you kind of have to shake him up in the lineup a little bit, move him down or up, whatever it might be. And Luis Roberts, outside of Soto, has been your best hitter. So I don't think that's the worst move in the world.
Yeah, it's weird because, Lindor is still among the league leaders in walks. His on-base percentage is still like respectable. He's not slugging at all right now. So he's doing the money ball approach, he's getting on base, but you're not looking for that out of Francisco Lindor. All right. Like, I think he's providing value to the team in the way that, like I said, he's getting on base. He's drawing his walks. He's playing good defense at shortstop, but you expect this guy to be near 30 home runs every single year. Right now, he doesn't quite look like that. And I know he starts out slow every year. Maybe once that hand is fully healthy, I don't know when that's going to be, you start seeing more of the old Francisco Lindor. It's just, I wonder how long they can go with that. I mean, last year he voluntarily moved out of the leadoff spot at a certain point. So maybe we do get to a point where either they start batting, maybe they move Robert up ahead of Bichette in the lineup, even though Bichette's at-bats have been better lately. But I would be open to having Robert batting either first or second in the lineup.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, like I said, he's been the best hitter outside of Soto. A guy like that you want up and probably, in more cases than you can. So we'll see what happens here. Like you said, Lindor moved out of the spot last year, leading off. So, if things continue, I don't see why there's not a case that you can't. I thinking about the A's coming into town. I think about Jeff McNeil coming into town, right? And I just continue to think about this course past. I still think Pete Alonso would have fit more than fine in the middle of this lineup, even with Bo Bichette. I don't know if the Mets are going to regret that long term, not whatever. But
Ask more
I just
fans how they feel about Pete Alonso right now, and they're I look. I know that baseball fans in general have like a quick fuse about things, but Orioles fans have piled on Alonso really, really quickly. And he's getting paid $155 million for that. I honestly, right now, don't think Pete Alonso would be helping the Mets lineup that much in terms of like
Fair
production
enough.
compared to like position wise. Like, I'm pretty sure that the combination of the guys the Mets have run out at first base would right now be outperforming him.
Well, it's a new day, a new dawn, like I said, for this Mets team here. Still trying to find their way. And like with the A's coming into town this weekend, you hope that the Mets can kind of settle the ship here, especially over the last, with how well they played at home, 2 years ago. Last year, it felt like that kind of went away, but hopefully a nice weekend and the fans kind of pack out because the Mets could really use another series win here.
Hopefully the freezing cold weather goes away a little bit. They can pack the stadium because that's the thing. It feels like Citi Field's been kind of dead the past few days. Sure. Well, it's because, you look out, you go outside, it's windy, very, very windy and freezing cold. I know I've been asked, like, have you gone to any games this homestand? I haven't yet because it's just I went to the second game of the season against the Pirates. It was a great game, but my legs literally went numb by like the fourth inning.
Yeah. Like you said, hopefully when the weather warms up, the Mets bats will warm up too. I feel like we say this every year. The Mets bats always kind of start slow in general. It's kind of always the same story. But
exactly.
Hopefully that does. Hopefully the warm weather brings the bats warming up. But
I know that they call us Panic City, but I don't want to hit the panic button yet.
No, again, with the team that's just a nucleus that's so brand new, I think they're just figuring things out for themselves. They're figuring out what their identity is, and they got to be fully healthy. That starts with getting their big guy Juan Soto back soon enough, and hopefully they can weather the ship because they're gonna have to score runs this weekend with the A's in town, like I said. So we're gonna wrap up here. Hopefully, like I said, Mets can get something rolling here, can get another win streak going. But that'll do it. And as always, everybody, let's go Mets.